Thank you so much for the invitation to be here today. I'm so happy to be with everyone. Next slide, please. So let's start today by just taking a moment to reflect on how we're feeling with an internal weather report. We do something similar to this. It's called a mood meter with our kids at school. And so I just really want to invite you to think about a few words maybe that describe the kind of weather that you're experiencing internally. Perhaps it's a mixture of different forecasts, right? So we're a reporter here. Maybe you're feeling sunny and cloudy, or maybe it's storming for you right now. So just take a moment to really explore and observe, and just try to accept whatever your weather is without judgment or labeling, just observing and noticing. If you'd like to add that to the chat, I'd welcome you to do that. Because when we notice our emotions, that is part of social and emotional learning skills. That's our self-awareness. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that self-awareness and self-management and all the other different competencies. And I really encourage you to really add those or write those down so that you can reflect after we finish our session to see how you're doing. Okay, thank you for your willingness to take a moment to reflect. So the pandemic is we're all going through this collective emotional trauma. And for some, it's a physical trauma. There's some real negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions associated with that. And I hope that by the end of today, I can provide you with some tools that you and your family, it'll help you and your family to really get through this, this point in our life and we can do this together. Next slide. So what are some of the signs of COVID-19 or pandemic fatigue? Well, emotional trauma creates both mental and physical exhaustion because we're constantly thinking and navigating through these uncertainties, right? It's this mess, right? When there's no end in sight, people are becoming tired of being overly careful and disconnected. Some of the symptoms can include boredom, loneliness, anxiety, sadness and hopelessness, stress, fear, resentment, and anger. It's just generally that blah feeling, right? When is this going to end? Next slide. So let's take specifically the symptom of stress. According to the CDC, stress during a global pandemic can cause the following: changes in sleep or eating patterns, difficulty sleeping or concentrating, worsening of chronic health problems. And our children are stressed out too. It's not exclusive to adults. Some of the changes that we see in our children and teens include in excessive crying, irritation in younger children, returning to behaviors they maybe had outgrown, things like having accidents, bedwetting, excessive worry or sadness, eating habits and sleeping habits that are, strange, irritability and acting out behaviors in teens. We also see this as poor school performance or even avoiding school. There's difficulty with them as well with attention and concentration. They avoid activities that they even enjoyed in the past. There's unexplained headaches, body pains, and sometimes there's even use of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. So I've given you all all of the negative stuff, right? So what do we do? Well, I think we need to really figure out what exactly is happening in our brain when we're stressed out to address these. Next slide, please. So we have to really find a way to break the cycle of stress. And so what happens is that there's 3 different areas in our brain. There's the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, and the hippocampus. And what happens is when we're stressed out, that part in the middle there, it's called the amygdala, and that's what we call the inside of our brain here. And that's the warning alarm that tells us we're in danger, which then causes the prefrontal cortex to disengage, or what we call flipping our lid. And this is where we make all of our logical decisions, right? So what happens is our amygdala starts to get bigger, and then it disengages our logical thinking. So our brain goes into the survival mode, right? So it's fight, flight, or freeze. I'm sure you probably have heard that. And this is helpful when we're confronted with a bear, right? We're either going to run from the bear, we're going to fight the bear, or we're going to freeze because we don't want the bear to see us. And so this reaction is a survival mode, right? We're not really thinking, we're just acting. And then many different hormones are released to aid us in the survival. But what happens if we're not actually in front of a bear, right? What if our bear is traffic? What if our bear is losing a loved one or losing our job or being, in the middle of a pandemic, right? Our bodies react much in the same way. Our heart pumps faster, our brain is cloudy, we're not thinking, we're just reacting, our breathing even changes. And so our bodies aren't meant to be in the state of fight, flight, or freeze, state of survival all the time. And these type of hormones constantly in your body can actually cause long-term health problems. Next slide, please. So how does this relate to social emotional learning? Well, social emotional learning is really how we show up with our friends, family, and people in our community. It's how we identify our emotions. It's how we manage those emotions. It's how we relate to others. It's the decisions that we make based on our understanding of ourselves and of others. And this is very true and important as we continue to work through this pandemic and through our fatigue. So here are a couple of things that we can do, and I'm going to give you a couple of different examples. So exercising. Be sure to exercise regularly, eat well, drink lots of water. According to the Mayo Clinic, they say women should have about 91 ounces of water daily intake, and men should have about 125 ounces. Get plenty of sleep. Anxiety contributes to disruptions in sleep. Sleep allows us to focus better and improves our immune system. Regardless of the weather, try to go outside and be in the sun. According to some studies, vitamin D actually boosts your immune system. And lastly, build in routines that keep you or help you keep positive or feel positive, and then practice these regularly. So even the smallest things that you can celebrate it, right? If your kid's socks match today, celebrate that, right? Did you know that celebrating is actually good for your brain? When you do, then it releases these great hormones, right? These counteractive hormones that are called dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin and endorphins. And these are fired up like fireworks. And so these actually counter those stressed emotions and feelings and things that are going on in our body because of social emotional learning. A couple of other things: be kind to yourself and others. Understanding that we're all experiencing this collective trauma, right? Showing grace goes a long way. Presume positive intent. Acknowledge the little things in life that you're grateful for and share them with the people that you love. It's because of our relationships, our connections, and our experiences. This is what's going to get us through, right? While these may look different during the pandemic, it's essential to really remain focused on the parts of our lives that bring us joy and meaning. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is really being present. We aren't constantly regretting things that have happened, and we're not anxious about the things that are happening in the future, right? Or that we think are going to happen in the future. Instead, you're really tapping into this present moment. Mindfulness helps with relieving stress. Helps with certain heart diseases. It lowers your blood pressure. It helps with chronic pain, and it helps improve your sleep. So isn't that amazing, right? Isn't that great to actually be, incorporating into your daily life? So I'm really excited because next slide, please. I'd like to share with you a mindfulness. It's called the SelfCompassion Break, and it's going to take a few minutes. Takes about 5 minutes to do. And you can do this sitting down, you can do this laying down, you can do this, just wherever you are. Obviously, you don't want to close your eyes if you're driving when you do this, right? But it's these messages that we're giving ourselves, and it's this way of thinking. So I'll encourage you to really listen to your body as we're doing this self-compassion break. If it doesn't feel right for you, don't do it. Your body is wise. It tells you what it needs, right? So this practice is called the self-compassion break, and it's something that you can do anytime during the day or at night when you need just a little self-compassion. So if you'd like to close your eyes, or you can do that, or if you'd prefer, you could lower your gaze and you could look away from the screen. That's okay too. And just where you're sitting. Noticing the weight of your body, all the touch points of your body to the chair, or maybe your feet touching the floor. Then I'm going to ask for you to think of something, a situation maybe in your life that's kind of difficult for you right now. Maybe you're feeling stressed because of the pandemic, or you're worried about something that might happen. Something difficult maybe that you're going through right now. And then putting that situation in your mind. Choosing a situation that's not overwhelming, especially if you're new to practicing this type of self-compassion, mindfulness, just something that maybe is troubling you right now. And then thinking of that situation and placing it at the front of your mind. Just really getting in touch with what's going on, what happened, what might happen, who said what. Really bringing the details of that situation in your life to your mind's eye. Then kindly inviting you to bring mindful awareness, just an awareness to the fact that suffering is present, right? Sometimes we don't really even give ourselves permission to even think of that, right? Perhaps saying to yourself something like, this is really difficult right now, or I'm really struggling. We're actually turning toward our difficulty and acknowledging it and naming it, saying something like, this is a moment of suffering. Acknowledging that suffering is part of life, right? Finding language that speaks to you. Maybe something like, many people are going through similar situations. Or it may look and sound different, but we aren't alone in these feelings. Maybe it's not abnormal to feel this way. Other people are feeling this way too. Lastly, inviting you to place your hand over your heart, or maybe on your shoulder, kind of like a half hug. Or if you want to give yourself a hug, that's okay too. You can put your hands on your belly if that feels comfortable to you, and just quietly saying to yourself, may I be kind to myself in this moment. Perhaps maybe language you would use with a good friend, someone you care about that's going through a very similar situation. Saying something like, I'm here for you. It's going to be okay. I care about you. Anything that feels natural to express your deep wish that you be well and happy and free from suffering and worrying. Then noticing how your body feels right now, allowing any sensation, allowing yourself to be just as you are in this moment. Perhaps breathing in whatever you need, love, encouragement, kindness, and breathing out whatever isn't serving you. And if your eyes were closed or your gaze was lowered, I invite you to gently open them, maybe wiggling wiggling your fingers and your hands, or rubbing them together, and welcoming the people and objects in this virtual space. So next slide, please. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. So a few more ideas. So connecting with others, right? Instead of social distancing, think about physical distancing instead, right? Because we can still be social. You can make phone calls, you can chat on social media, you can write letters, you can take a class online, right? A live class online. We can still make those connections. Perhaps it's not in person, but we can still be connected. We can still be social with other people. Accepting your feelings. It's important to really say, hey, you know what, right now I'm not feeling that great. I'm feeling, stressed out, or I'm feeling disappointed, or I'm feeling discouraged, really naming your feeling. So then that way, you know what to do with it, and how are you going to really, what are you going to do to make sure that you can either get away from that feeling, or you can stay in that feeling if it's a positive one. Create new traditions. So drive-by birthday parties and graduations are a great way to celebrate in a safe manner, right? It's maybe even something that you want to continue doing. I thought those were great. It's like it allowed people to be able to come to my house at different times of the day, whereas before maybe they weren't even able to make it because they had other things going on. So really embracing new traditions is really great as well. And the last slide, please. So I just want to thank you all for allowing me to share this information with you. I want to invite you to the Social Emotional Learning Department's 7th session, Fighting Fair. This session is where we're going to be sharing with parents strategies for moving through disagreements within their family structure. I'm going to be on to answer any questions you may have in the chat. I hope you all have a great evening. And remember, breathe. Inhale and exhale, right? Because we're all going through this, and I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great evening.